Hi, everyone. Welcome to the RightBack product walkthrough. Let me show myself. So my name is Ricardo, and I'm the product manager for RightBack, and I'll be conducting this product demo. For those that are new to RightBack, we'll be doing a new configuration showing how the product works. For those that are already using it, I know there's a few in the attendees. We'll be highlighting some of the new features on version 2.2, so it should also be interesting for you. Okay, so let's carry on. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that you all came across scenarios where you would like to use Tableau beyond just the insights and get more from it. So we all know that Tableau is really good when it comes to allowing people to understand and see their data. So basically doing all the exploration. But sometimes we want to complement these with use cases where you need people to submit data. And you can have many different types of processes. These are just examples. Forecasting, maybe establishing the root cause of something that is wrong. So basically anything that requires a more qualitative analysis, or that depends on external factors that you cannot incorporate into your numbers, can potentially come and be one of these use cases. And what happens is currently, since Tableau doesn't have this feature, you have to rely on third-party tools. And this can be either Excel spreadsheets, which are really flexible, but it makes it completely ungoverned, the process. We had customers that were using Excel spreadsheets for in a bank, and the process was relying on that, and then sometimes people would delete the wrong files and it would stop the process. So you get the flexibility, but you lose the governance. Another option is to use tools that are specifically built for that process. You have forecasting tools or other examples. But the disadvantage in here is that you lose the agility of Tableau, and you basically gain the governance. But you still don't get the best of both worlds. So it means that none of the alternatives are really good in the end. And you cannot use Tableau to receive the inputs and keep using it as you like it. So what if we could write the data inside our Tableau dashboards and no longer have to rely on these other tools? That's exactly why we built RightBack, and that's exactly what it does. So yeah, let's see it in action. Let's see how it works. It's far better than just being here listing all the functionalities that we already have. So let me switch to my Tableau workbook. So an important note, I'm showing this on the Tableau desktop just because at the end we are going to connect with the data that we generate on RightBack. So you see the full process, but everything that you are seeing in here would be exactly the same on the server. So all the UI works on the server as well. Something that I would also like to highlight is that we are on version 2.2. So this demo leverages all these features that we have been building up, and I'll highlight some of the new features. So what happened is we start talking with a lot of different organizations. We have been now also on the Tableau conference, and we ended up grouping a lot of the use cases that we got from these organizations into three main buckets: root cause analysis, forecasting, and commenting. In the end, you'll see that RightBack can do much more than this. So these are just examples, but significant examples, because we have seen a lot of organizations demanding for these type of use cases. On the configure your own, this is what I'm going to do at the end. I'm actually going to do a different use case, which is basically replacing values. So it's another example where you can also leverage RightBack. So let me start by showing you the end result. How can a user an end user, a viewer on the Tableau server, interact with WriteBack. So we have a regular dashboard on Tableau. In this case, it's a forecasting dashboard. So, sorry, in this case, it's a root cause analysis dashboard where we have highlighted on Tableau the main deviations in terms of profit. So we either overachieved or we underachieved. And this is something that Tableau is really good at, highlighting these, because we can do the calculated fields very easily, and we can highlight what we think that are the most important outliers. We also have a map where we see the events that people have identified and whether we have a good explanation for the outlier or we don't, okay? And at the top, the main KPI. So a regular Tableau dashboard. And what's different in here is that we have WriteBack here available. So I can actually click on this button from WriteBack. So I can select the bar. In this case, I can see that for Germany and for France, we don't have a good explanation for what was the event that drove this deviation. So I'm going to choose France, and I can click on WriteBack. And what WriteBack is going to allow me to do is to submit now the data. So what was the main event that allowed us to overachieve? Okay, maybe we opened a new factory. When did this happen? I think it was like 1 week ago. So we can choose the date. This was an internal event. And this is the likely root cause for this situation. Okay. So I can also choose from the dropdown. And when I choose the likely root cause, we actually add more fields to the form. Because if I know that this is a likely root cause, I want to provide the impact and an additional analysis, a more detailed analysis, which is something that it's not applicable if I was just going to say that this was just a correlated event. Okay. So let me choose likely root cause. So we have access to all the fields on the form, and I can type in what was the estimated impact of this change and my analysis on this. So now when I'm going to click on submit, this is actually going to trigger a dashboard refresh, and we're going to see that we can change the shapes on the maps and also update the impact based on these figures. So this is something that it's optional. You can choose to use WriteBack and update the dashboard, or you don't. It's just a checkbox. But it's a checkbox that allows you to have a very good integration between what you specify and what the users are typing in and what they see on the underlying dashboard, and they can get immediate feedback. So now let me show you a different example. It's not going to be a form anymore, because in this case, we wanted to have forecasting for the different countries. And this could potentially be a distributed process where each country manager would forecast his own country. And the idea in here is you can type in the forecast, and then you get all the figures updated on the dashboard. So you have a pretty good idea of what is the end result. And this can be the end result for your own country or the end result across the board. And even for a high-level management, they can immediately see all the forecasts integrated. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the country, click on WriteBack again. So everything else is just a normal dashboard. Here we can click on WriteBack. And what we are going to see in here is no longer just a form. It's actually a table where we can type in the forecast per month. And the forecast is divided on 3 main KPIs: sales, costs, and what's the expected discount. So we are going to see how we can make a new configuration, but all these fields can be specified by you and based on your data. So none of this is hard-coded. You can see that, for instance, the months are showing in Portuguese because they're actually coming from my Tableau desktop. So this means that we can have months in here, customers, wherever you have, whatever dimension you have on your data can be used to drive the table. So this is the main area where you specify the forecast. We also have here a form that enables us to contextualize what we are doing. Maybe this is an initial version, maybe this is an optimistic version for the forecast. We can very easily contextualize what is happening, and we can only see what is the country where I'm going to apply this. And again, this is just an example because I could have here another dimension. So I'm going to type in the forecast for November and maybe for December. So I'm typing in the values, but I could potentially copy paste from Excel. That's fine. I got this one wrong. So those functionalities are also available. Another important thing is that we have here we are using a feature which we call unique entries. So it means that we can only have a forecast per country. And that's why when I clicked on the country, I immediately got the previous forecast available, and I only have to submit the missing months. Again, this is something optional. It just depends on how you want to leverage RightWag. So I'm going to click on edit, and again, the dashboard is updated accordingly, and we see the changes on the forecasting. Okay. So now something different. So the two examples that we saw before, they were relying on a specific mark on the visualization. So you had to click on the mark and then call RightBack to provide your feedback about that specific item. But what if we could just provide comments about the overall dashboard? So that's exactly what we have here. We have a shipment trends dashboard, which is filtered by year, by quarter. And the idea in here is that I want to be able to specify a comment, but it has to be meaningful for the filter that I'm doing. I don't want to be seeing the comments for Q4 if I am on Q2. So, and I want to see the comments here on the side. So let me get back to T4 because I know we have two comments in here, and we can see them. So now let's just use RightBack to add a new comment. So I no longer need to select a mark. I can just click on the comment. And I know that this comment is going to be applied for 2019 on the fourth quarter. And I can specify here my comment on this quarter, Q4. So here, once I submit, I don't have the dashboard refresh activated. So it means that the comments or the entries that I provide on RightBack, they just get updated here on our timeline. And we can always go here on the timeline and edit a previous entry and make sure that it's consistent. Okay. I can also delete something that was already previously submitted. So in this case, this comment, it doesn't seem something right. It's just like, looks like a test. So I'm going to delete it and make sure that we don't get it anymore. Yeah, I don't have anything to submit. I just deleted. So I'm just going to close the window. Okay. So with these examples, we have seen 3 different use cases for RightBack. One's based on marks, the others based on just an overall feedback. But like I said, the tool in the end is really configurable. So let's see an example of how we can make this configuration and what are the tools that Writeback gives us to adapt for our own use cases. So I'm heading for this dashboard, and this is a regular dashboard again, where I have a table with quantity, sales, and profit. And like I said at the beginning, so on this example, what I'm going to implement is, imagine that the quantity that you had in here might not be completely accurate, and you know that there might be some changes to the quantity that you would like to apply and to store on the database. So let's implement a use case like that, where we can submit the quantity with Writeback and then replace it immediately on the table so that we can see the end result. Okay. So if you want to use Writeback, the first thing that you need to do is to drag the extension component to your dashboard. And what happens is the Tableau extensions can either be executed online, and you typically go to the extension gallery, or they can be executed on your infrastructure on-prem. Writeback is a Tableau extension that you can install. Basically, you have to install on your premises. It means that we don't need any internet access. All your data is always secure inside your infrastructure. So I'm going to look at my extensions, and this is now I need to look on my file system for the T-Rex file that it's going to point at Writeback. So once you run the Writeback installer, you'll get it directly like this, and you have the T-Rex file inside. The T-Rex file is just a file that it's like a bookmark on your browser. So basically it points at the server where you have Writeback installed. In this case, I'm pointing at my local hosts, so at my PC. In your use case, once you install it, this will be where the server from your company is going to go. And the T-Rex is just a file that you have to give to your dashboard creators. If they want to leverage Writeback, they just need to have this file in hand after the installation. And that's the only thing that it's needed. So now I'm going to click on OK. And the first thing that I'm going to see is a login screen. So we wanted to make sure that Writeback is governed. So you have the agility. I'll show you the configuration, that it's very flexible. But at the same time, we always wanted to keep track of who did what. And that's only possible if you have a login mechanism, because the extensions by design run separately from the Tableau server. And in this case, I'm going to have to type in the login, which, by the way, it's the same that we use on our public sandbox, which is user1 and password. Let me type it in correctly. And what happens is I'm seeing this login screen on my Tableau desktop, but if I was on the Tableau server, I could leverage the single sign-on mechanisms that Writeback supports. And basically on this release 2.2, we have added support for SAML and OpenID. And we also already had support for Kerberos. So that means that if you already have a single sign-on mechanism on Tableau, it's very likely that you can also integrate Writeback in there, because we are supporting a wide set of technologies. And it means that basically for your end users, it means that they will never see the login screen on the server. And that's basically the only difference from the demo that I'm doing. So I'm going to log in. And now we need to start building the use case to replace the quantity. So let me take you through the configuration, and you'll see how easy it is. So the first thing that I need to choose is, what is the worksheet inside my dashboard that I want to use as a basis for my data? In this case, we have three worksheets: the graphics with the products, the header, the total sales, And we also have the sales detail, which is this table that I want to use. So based on the source sheet, we get in here all the source fields that are being used inside, basically all the dimensions that I'm using inside. And in this case, I'm going to keep the country, because if I want to replace the quantity in here, I want to make sure that whenever the users type in the quantity, it always gets associated with the correct country. So all the fields that we leave in here, all the dimensions, become business keys for the data that you submit on WriteBack. Now I'm going to choose a data set name. Maybe I want to call it fixed quantity, okay? This is actually going to become the table name behind the scenes. WriteBack enables us to write the data to a table on our database, and this is going to become the table name. Now I can choose what are the field names that I'm going to basically choose the users to submit. So I want the users to submit quantity. Okay, this becomes a mandatory field and it's numeric. And maybe I will also want the users to provide the status so that I also get some feedback. And it would typically be a drop-down, which I can do with a predefined. And they would say that this is maybe something draft or already validated. But the downside of typing in here is that now if I want to use this drop-down on another place, either on my Tableau dashboards or on another WriteBack use case, I would have to repeat again the values. So in this case, I'm going to use a dynamic predefined, which is also a drop-down that is going to be displayed, but it's going to be based on a Tableau parameter. So I can go in here and choose status, which is a parameter that I configured previously on Tableau, and it's a list. So any of your list parameters can be used here. So instead of typing in the values will be obtained from the parameter on Tableau. If you have the latest versions of Tableau, these parameters can also be dynamic based on your data. So it means that you can have a drop-down with a dynamic list just by leveraging these features. So now we have two fields configured on our form. We can switch the order of the fields, okay? Or we could eventually specify a condition. Imagine that I wanted the field to be hidden. I could specify a condition saying like quantity needs to be, or the country needs to be something, okay? So we provide a way to basically hide or show the fields based on conditions, okay? And the conditions have error handling and need to be correct. In this case, yeah, I can leave it like this. Yeah. Let me just close it. I don't need the conditions for quantity. I want to be able to replace on every country, but that's one of the features that we introduced on 2.2. Okay, so we have the two fields configured. I could basically configure as many fields as I wanted, and that's what's going to drive the form. So let me just do here a small change. So I want also to make clear what's the end goal of WriteBack. So I can type in what's going to be the name that is displayed on the button. And I can also specify the color of the button so that it better blends into my dashboard. So once I click on submit, that's where the magic happens. And basically right now, WriteBack has created a table for me on the back end. And whenever a user chooses a country, he can fix the quantity on that particular country. So, and you can see that the form that is displayed is exactly the fields that we defined, including the status values that come from the parameter on Tableau. So maybe for France, I think that it's 11,000, the correct quantity, which is a little bit higher compared with this one. Okay. And maybe for these Ireland, Denmark, and Sweden, for these three countries, maybe I know that the quantity for them is always the same, so I can do a multi-select and fix all their values at the same time and say that it's 500. Maybe this is just a draft. Let me submit. Oh, but I can see that for Denmark, maybe this is too optimistic. You know, I don't think that we have that many fields, values that we are missing. So I can go back to Denmark and just fix this one with 300. That's probably the right quantity for this one. Okay. And I'm submitting and changing the values. So the thing is, I'm submitting values on write-back, but nothing is happening to the table. So I must be missing something, okay? So what I'm missing in here is that if I want to display the data on the Tableau visualizations, I now need to connect to the data that is being generated by write-back, because write-back never writes on top of your data. This would be a huge risk. People could use it in the wrong places and get manual data that was placed on top of their systems. So we always write to a separate data set so that there is a clear distinction between what's automatic data and manual data. So I'm going to connect to the write-back data set, and then we are going to create formulas and do data blending so that the quantity is immediately replaced. And for an end user, he doesn't even know exactly where the data is. So on data, I'm going to create a new data source. In this case, we are using a Postgres database, but write-back supports MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server. So pretty much the main databases that you would expect to use are supported for write-back. So it means that in your use case in particular, you can always use your database, provided that it's one of these technologies, and you don't need to install a specific database for write-back. So I'm going to choose Postgres, type in the password, and now let's see what write-back has created for us on the back end. Okay, so we have a lot of tables in here. These are all, so basically each button on the UI corresponds to a data set, and this data set has an underlying table that was generated by write-back. Besides that, we have some additional tables which are just for metadata purposes. So, and if you remember, I created the table, the data set called fixed quantity, and that's exactly the table name that I have in here. So let me bring it to the analysis, to the data source. And if I do update now, you can see that we have exactly the same fields that we configured. So quantity and status are being asked to the end users on the form. We also have the country, which is the key that we decided to keep from the original data set on the table. That means that I can join by this field because I know for sure that I will never have here a country that is wrongly spelled or unavailable. And this mimics exactly the fields that we had. Okay. We also have some additional columns. So the surrogate key is important because imagine that I also wanted to know exactly who had provided that particular quantity. And for that, I can bring the historical audit table. And with this table, if I join by the keys, the surrogate key with the dataset key, what is going to happen is that I get access to additional information that is going to tell me who did what. So we can see that across all these entries, it was always user one. That's the user I used for login. if this was an actual dashboard and if it was published on your server, you would see here all the different users that had submitted data. We know if it was on the desktop or on the server. And another important aspect is that we know if it was an insert or an edit. Okay. So this is only possible, the insert and the edit, because let me sort by country. Okay. So you see that we have 2 entries for Denmark. And that is because I first inserted 500. And if you remember, I got back in there and then I edited saying that the right quantity was 300. And if you remember, I said that we always wanted to have a full audit trace on what happened. So we never delete any rows on the back end. What we do is doing additional inserts and keeping always the old values. This means that if you want the latest snapshot, only the latest edit, ignoring all the deletes, all you have to do is just filter by the exactive column and set it to true. So if I go here on exactive, select true, I'm just going to get the latest row, which is the 300 for Denmark. So it's a very easy way of filtering if you want the latest snapshot. If you want to look at your data for auditing purposes, you can still do it, and you just have to ignore the filter. So now we have the data set ready. Let me just call it right back quantity. So the data source is ready. So let's get back to our dashboard and see how we can use this on the table. So the table used to have just quantity, but now I can leverage the quantity from right back. All I have to do for data blending is to make sure that the names of the fields match, or I could, in alternative, do the edit relationships, okay? And we can see that we already have here a new quantity available. So what I'm going to do on the super sort data, the original data, is create a new calculated field that is going to replace quantity whenever it is available on right-back. Okay, so I'm going to use a very simple formula to say if null. So if the quantity on right-back is not available, I'm going to revert to the original quantity, which came from my automatic data set. And this basically means for the users that the data will look like it's replaced on the table without actually being. So in terms of backend, you always know what's the manual data, what's the automatic data, and it's just in visual for the visualization that it's replaced. So let me click on OK. Let me bring the fixed quantity to the table. Okay. We can see that this is correct because if you remember, I submitted data for France. For Germany, I didn't. And if I look at Denmark and Ireland, you can see that I submitted here these values, and they are different from the original one. Okay. So now if I remove the original quantity, this becomes more interesting because now I'm replacing the values on top. And if I want to make it even more interesting, I can also bring the status to the colors. Okay. And say that, for instance, null is something that has not been submitted. Draft, maybe I want to put it in blue, and verified in green. Yeah, and for those that are not submitted, maybe I want orange to highlight them. Okay. And now I can get back to my dashboard, and I have the entries working. Okay. So now let me just get back to right-back and log in. Okay, so now if I added an entry for Germany, I can click on fixed quantity. and apply the value. But I'm still missing something. So I'm not refreshing the dashboard. So what do I need to do? Whenever you have made a configuration, you can always get back to this particular configuration and activate wherever you want, or add new fields, remove them. Just bear in mind that if you add or remove fields, they will change the table structure on the back end, but all this is done automatically. So you just have to bear that in mind. It's not a technical process at all. So I can come here and choose to auto refresh the dashboard. And by the way, since I'm fixing a quantity, I'm also going to activate the unique entries to make sure that I can only have one quantity per country. Okay. Yeah, he's going to warn me because this was not activated from the beginning. So I'm going to accept, edit the data set. And that means that now if I do the same for the United Kingdom, and if I fix the quantity, which in this case is lower, my table is going to be updated immediately because I'm triggering the dashboard refresh. And we get to see the tables, the values fixed, and the quantity is completely updated. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of demo, that's what I had to show. I hope you enjoyed this use case and that you understood exactly how this works. If you have any questions, you feel free to type in on the Q&A, and we'll have a bit time to answer in the end. So just to explain you the overall architecture, just to make it clear. So what we have seen in here is you have the write-back server that is deployed on your infrastructure side by side with your Tableau server. They can have common security mechanisms because we support the same technologies. And what happens, in fact, when a user is accessing a dashboard that has write-back is that he's going to access the two servers at the same time based on the DRX. And on the back end, you are going to have data written to your write-back tables. And this data can be meshed up with your data warehouse data. Okay? In the end, in terms of experience for the end users, the end user experience is really good because you can have a live connection. That's what I did to your write-back data set and be updating it immediately. So now some notes on how the project works in terms of packaging. So we have a subscription-based model, and we provide all the manuals. We are very transparent in the way that we work. So if you check in our manuals, we'll send you this PDF. If you check in our manuals, you see the product roadmap, all the release notes that we have done until version 2.2 where we are. So all of this is available. You can also check the pricing on our website. Here, the important note is that our pricing, the subscription price, is based on user tiers, and we only take into account the users that interact with write-back. This means users that submit information on write-back or users that configure new dashboards. It basically means that you don't have to license your whole Tableau user base. We provide trials, and this is something that you can do automatically. You just need to go on our website, click on Let Me Try Now, and you get entitled to a 30-day trial. If you need any help across the process, feel free to reach out to the support team. We have a service desk in place where you can open tickets based on the type of issue that you found, and we'll be supporting you through the process of the trial. And later, if you acquire the product, we'll also be supporting you on any technical issue that you face, or even if you need any help with the implementation of the use cases. So we do have already customers using it. Some of them are on this webinar. And we basically, for a few customers, 2 customers, we have been able to obtain official quotes on what's their opinion about write-back. And we were really glad that their opinion is really good, not only about the product, but also about the support and the experience that they have working with us. And that's something that we have always prioritized, the experience for the customers. And it's very good to have this type of feedbacks from Rotex, an industrial company in the US, and also very good feedback from Lind, which has been one of it was actually the first customer for WriteBack. And they also have very positive feedback. We have been able to help them with the forecasting process that they have in-house. And they were actually able to start to change the process to basically do the forecasting more regularly, because it became much more simple than filling in all the Excel spreadsheets. Everything just becomes together automatically. So we have actually been able to change how they work in this particular aspect. So we still have some time for Q&A. So I'm not sure if you guys want to place any questions. Okay, so we have here one question is, how do I manage who can submit the data? So inside WriteBack, we don't have yet an authorization mechanism, but it's very easy to achieve that. All you need to do is publish on the Tableau server and publish a dashboard with the correct permissions, the dashboard with WriteBack, so that only the users entitled to submit data can view it, because any viewer on the Tableau server can submit the data. And then you can perhaps publish a second dashboard with broader access, just with the end results and without placing WriteBack inside. Okay, so we have another question. Is it possible to install with Azure SQL DB? It's something that we are currently testing. It shouldn't be an issue. So if it's SQL Server compliant, yeah, with SQL, yeah, sure, it's possible. That's where we have our sandbox. We are using already Azure SQL Server. So yeah, definitely supported. Do we support the initial installation of WriteBack? Yeah, so the service desk is in place. So we won't be doing the installation for you, but we support you across the whole process, from the initial installation, from the trial, initial installation, any error that shows up. So you open a ticket, we try to solve it based on the information that you provide. And then if necessary, we schedule a call so that you can share your screen and we'll take you through the process. So once installed, does WriteBack automatically create the fields within the underlying SQL database? Or is it Tableau used to create the fields? No, basically WriteBack manages all the fields. So you can see WriteBack as kind of a SQL engine that is able to create new columns, create new tables, change the table structure to add or remove columns. So all of that is available inside WriteBack, so you don't need to worry about it. He will do everything automatically for you. On Tableau, you just need to create the data sources like I shown, and basically use the fields or the columns that are already created on the table. Any more questions? Yeah, so I think we covered all the questions that were raised. I really hope that you enjoyed this session. And if you need anything else, we'll be sending you the recording and also the PowerPoint that I've shown. It contains all the links to the important topics, the documentation, the service desk. It also has our emails, so feel free to reach out if you have any subsequent questions. So goodbye, everyone, and I hope to see you soon.